Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community, and multiple of my friends have awared me that a smaller channel called AlphaDestiny covers some stuff with AlphaDestiny. And you know what? Here's what I'm going to say about that. I'm going to go ahead and give credit there. I'll link the original video down below. AlphaDestiny, you're doing the Lord's work. You are doing the Lord's work. But let me just flip in a little bit that he said, quoting, showing direct quotes from Alex. I'm going to flip it in now.
Another weird complaint is that short guys say, well, if I develop certain muscles, I'm going to look shorter, therefore I'm not going to train them. And it's like, what kind of bitch-ass move is that? You're not going to train your traps, which can make you look so much better because it might make you look a little bit shorter. You're not going to train your legs because it can make you look shorter. Really, dude? Okay. And you're like, man, why should I be squatting? I already have big legs. I think that's perfectly fine to skip legs. Absolutely. But if you're going to not train them whatsoever because you're scared of looking shorter, again, your insecurities are showing, bro.
Many of you don't want tree trunks. You find it to be repulsive, myself included. I used to have 26-inch legs, and as a short man, it didn't look right. It looked awful, as a matter of fact. So I understand your frustrations and realize that you don't have to be influenced by anybody else.
So what you have to do, again, it goes back to step number 1 of this very video. Love your height. Accept your height. You gotta stop saying, man, I wish I was taller. Or you gotta stop wearing these special clothes because it has vertical lines and that's gonna make you taller. Or wearing fucking 6-inch heels like a woman. It's like, dude, chill the fuck out. A lot of short guys, if not the majority of them, have this major issue of not accepting what their actual height is. I see it all the time. You're short, accept it. Once you accept what you really are, you're gonna be way happier. It's comparable to a guy who has a lust for men, but he tries convincing himself that he doesn't like men. It's comparable to a guy who has a lust for men, but he tries convincing himself that he doesn't like men. It's comparable to a guy who has a lust for men, but he tries convincing himself that he doesn't like men.
Damn. So let me put on my +5 head of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And you know what, guys? This is the point I always make. You get people who get caught up in these different trends. You have guys like Alex who promote trends like not training your legs. And for the record, no, doing one-legged pistol squats is not training your legs. You're not going to get the same benefit. You're not going to get the full benefits to your body you're going to get from a big barbell squat. You are not. And the reason I want to cover some of this, well, I don't even need to get into all of his antics to fully cover all of this, but the important thing here is that I tell people squatting really shouldn't be optional. And the reason I say that is because we should be training for our overall health and our overall fitness, right? That's what we should be doing. It's not just about obtaining a certain look, it is about quality of life. It's about quality of life. And what does all the evidence that we have out there show us? That your legs actually matter more for your quality of life, for your health markers, for everything else. Your leg strength is going to be most correlated with lower rates of cancer, lower rates of diabetes, less osteoporosis, and we even got data showing that it affects Alzheimer's the most. Now, you might have kids like him who are 22 years old who are out here promoting different stuff, but is that really helping people? No, it's a detriment, because when you are standing there telling people not to train their legs and you're doing examples of not training your legs yourselves, you are hurting people's health. That's not a good thing. Now, whether you enjoy what he says or not is irrelevant. People need to understand that's promoting a bad message, right? Just like for me, when I bulk up to too heavy of a body weight, people have called me out and said, hey, you're walking around at 250, which you guys have seen me at. They're like, you're not promoting fitness. And you know what? Guilty as charged. I can acknowledge that. And I've worked on improving that because, again, that's a perfect example of me being someone who people are listening to doing something that's really unhealthy, right? It's not in their best interest, and I'm displaying it myself. And if you're going to do that, you need to clarify to people that it's not good, right? That it's not good. And it wasn't for me to be doing that. And I'll acknowledge my hypocrisy. And I'm taking active measures to fix that. I've cut over 40 pounds. I'm going to continue to cut. I'm going to go down under 200 pounds, right? You acknowledge our hypocrisy. And he needs to acknowledge his. And the other thing is that what really bothers me with what he does is that even though he is actually shorter than he claims to be, we could argue about the evidence on all of that. I believe he legitimately is 5'3". I don't know what he's claiming he is these days, whether it's 5'5", 5'6". I've seen him next to enough other people that I have a good idea who I know their heights. Now, people will pull that with me, but it's not actually true. I'm not going to get into all of that. So maybe the people who are saying he's actually 5'3", maybe it's possible that they have done some math wrong and that they don't have it correct. And I'll acknowledge that fact that he legitimately might be 5'5" or 5'6". I don't believe that he is, but maybe they're wrong. And that's the point we need to make with all that, because we're speculating stuff without actually measuring the person in person with equipment. So, it's speculation. But the problem we have is that he uses it to his advantage when he does any sort of deadlift. And what I mean there is that the shorter you are, the easier it is to deadlift. Why? Because plates are set to calibrated heights. The hardest part of any deadlift is the first couple inches off the floor. If you're shorter with shorter legs, but the plates stay the same height as far as where the center of gravity on the bar is from the floor, it's actually easier for you to pull a heavier weight for every pound of body weight that you have. So people who are much shorter can deadlift a lot more relative to their body weight, a lot more. And it's because they're removing the hardest part of the range of motion. So what happens if you start doing partials? What happens when you do a reverse band? What happens when you add a block? What happens when you add high handles on a trap bar? Well, before long, you start finding that people can deadlift 200 plus pounds more than what their real deadlift would be. And when you're short, you completely amplify that effect, right? Anytime you start trimming inches out of the range of motion on any pull from the floor when you're already below average height, the magnitude by which that range of motion impacts you positively in your ability to lift more weight with less force, it becomes amplified, that it greatly increases it to the point where you have guys like Alex who have done a high handle trap bar deadlift with 700 pounds, who probably at that time would have struggled with a 500 pound deadlift, right? And perfect examples, we have other people out there on YouTube who deadlift with a high handle trap bar 200 pounds more than their conventional or sumo deadlift. There's a bunch of them. Bugenhagen, not strong enough, right? Those are perfect examples. So the stuff that we need to think about when we look at these displays of strength, and people say, well, it's still the weight lifted. It is, but it isn't, because what is strength? Strength is the production of force against an external object. And when you create an environment to where moving a heavier weight requires the production of far less force, it's not necessarily the display of strength that you think it is. Right? It's not necessarily a display of strength that you think it is. And the reality is when we start cutting range of motion out, if our goal, and all these people out here say, oh, I do this to get jacked. I want to get jacked. This is about my appearance, right? Which is what Alex promotes, right? Getting guys yoked or whatever this stuff they want to call it. But it is there to build muscle. That's the point of all these lifts. The truth is, though, every single study that's ever looked at it, when you start reducing the range of motion in order to add more weight to the bar, what happens? It causes less muscle growth. So the reality is these silly displays of strength that he often does are going to produce less muscle growth. So he does all that, then slaps it into trendy books and sells it, and his silly-ass followers buy into it. Now, the reality is when you look at all of them, look at the people who have followed him. Most of them still don't have any appreciable amount of muscle mass. So what I would ask is, are you sure that the methods that he's using are how he built his size? Because I seem to recall years ago, everyone remembers for years, he was one of my biggest followers. He was one of my biggest followers. This guy would comment in every one of my videos, and he would remake my videos basically and re-say what I would say. And he actually put a bunch of my quotes directly in his Naturally Enhanced book. He would use my methods, and that's fine. I mean, I think the methods I put out are good. And the ones I was putting out back then are good. He would use my methods, and he used them to build his base. And then he goes into all this circus show and act that he puts on with all these silly-ass lifts and ways that he does stuff. And he's not really that much bigger than he was back then, is he? He built his base using my principles. And then he sells all this trendy garbage that everyone is doing, and they're not getting results. Because every single one of these guys, when they follow and say, well, my traps blew up, then you go look, they don't even have big traps. And Alex doesn't have bigger traps than any of the guys he trains with on camera, like Omar, does he? So has it actually worked? Has it actually produced any more trap growth than conventional training? I would say no. I would say no. That's just a simple reality of it. And the truth is, he's admitted here, though, that he doesn't train legs because he's insecure about his height. How ridiculous. Alex, you need to get your ass under a squat bar and quit pretending that you're strong because you do partials and because your upper body is strong. Because upper body strength isn't all around strength. It's not the same as being strong. Being good on a bench press or a weighted pull-up, it is definitely a display of strength, but it's not the same as being truly strong if you don't have equivalent strength in your lower body. It really isn't. Quit worrying and being so insecure about your height. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.